Well, you're both describing how you never work together, but when we go to international meets, we see the countries working really hard together. That they have their coach boat, they do match racing and all that sort of thing. They help tune each other's boats. They look for the best. Looking back on your career, do you think that would have changed anything if you, as a group of Canadians, had done that together? And I'm asking both of you.
Well, first of all, we would have had to have had coaching at that
Well,
point.
or even each other, to say, hey, I tried this, have you tried that, kind of thing. Because we see this a lot.
You know, I can virtually tell you that if he had tried something on his boat, I knew about it before they left the dock that morning.
So you're already doing that, you just weren't discussing it.
Yeah.
You're cheating.
He knows, I mean, I know Johnny Kerr had left his footprints on my boat more often than my footprints were. So, there wasn't too many secrets going around.
That's one of my crews. Having grown up in this rivalry and then later sailing against Billy with my dad, it's totally true. It's out, you know, you're there at 8 o'clock at night, you know.
But you weren't, but not discussing it. Like what we see is we see people discussing it, like collaboratively, because of what Juan said. If you put yourself against the best, you're going to get better. So they see it as the attitude is if we each can tune even better each race, then it's down to the sailing part, right?
You got to understand the psyche first.
That's why I'm asking. Yeah.
I was the best. When I went against them, they were going to get better and close to me. When he was the best, if we tuned too much, then I was going to get better and close to him.
It changes hands to, if you reach the top of the fall, then the other guys came up pretty quickly, then changed. But what happened is that we were all on the Canadian sailing team because we were on top 10 in many regattas in the world, 4 boats from Canada. And eventually we made the criteria to be on the sailing team. So we went to all the regattas and meet in sailing. So we were sailing against them all the time. And it was just an international regatta, which was actually better because we have other people around us. So we had to kind of get forward and win the regatta to beat the rest of the Canadian, because if we didn't win the regatta, some other Canadian will win it. So it was sort of naturally that we worked up and being the best in the world and as a group, because we met in those regattas everywhere in the world.
One of the things that was pretty interesting was that we were different sails too. I mean, Hans was his own label. Early on, I was using Melgus, and Dexter and those guys were Hans, Melgus, or North. I mean, there was quite a mix. So because of the equipment that we had, we actually were looking at each other's all the time. But that didn't mean every once in a while get in there and stir the pot. I'd phone up, you know, Dexter and say, "Do you know what Hans was doing? Have you guys thought doing this?" Or phone up Peter Hall, because that was a good one to get a hold of all the time. That would get him going all the time. Gee, Hans said this about you or that. You know, so we're working on each other's heads as well as our boats and everything as well at the same time. You got to understand, we grew up in a different era too. We were the curve that was doing the inventing and everything. So who was going to coach us was I think a couple times in Maine we had different coaches, but they were just there at the head of the team. We never had the equipment like rubber ducks running around with us and looking at sails, and I never had the advantage of being able to get on a coach boat, look at the other guy's sails, and get back on our boat and do ours. We never had that. So maybe it would have been interesting to have had that. But we would have lost that aspect of self-reliance that we had. We get to an event, if something went wrong, we were able to fix it and be part of the event. I mean, it's one of the things, I don't think any of us ever missed anything. I mean, if something happened, he needed a mask, or, you know, that would all get worked over and given to each other. But we were very self-reliant about having things happen and then fixing it ourselves.
If I can get both of you, you mentioned, you know, you were on the beginning of the sort of curve as far as inventing and trying things and self-reliance. If you could sort of talk about the things that you did and tried, you as well, because I know you go back a bit more to Paul. If you could talk a little bit about that, just, because I think that's the one thing I see today with the kids. They don't, well, the number has to be 46 inches, and and it's there, and it stays there the whole day.
They don't know why it's gone.
About trying, like, how many times do you try different mass or different sail or rate more or less or stuff like that?
I guess one of the things, if I could paraphrase it, that's called sailing by numbers.
Well, yeah, that's what the kids do.
And I never sailed by numbers. I actually couldn't probably tell you what my rate was or what my shroud tension was, but it was what it needed to be for that day.
I feel.
By feel, exactly.
That's
Because they're videotaping.
We would leave the dock, and it was yesterday's setting, and just change it as we were going out to fit the wave pattern and the wind of the day. I never had anything in my boat that said, "Got to be here today." Look at the wind, it's got to be here, got to be here. Never had that. We would get back to the same settings that, if say it was a 15-knot wind and we had a 2-foot chop, I would end up with the same settings that I would normally have, but it wasn't because I set it up by numbers that way. We just got to it that way because of the feel. Because we knew by experience what it needed to be, what the boat needed to feel like for that day. And by doing that, if the day was a little bit different, we had the 15 knots of wind, but the wave was a little bit different, or there was a wave from this direction, not true with the wind, we set the boat up to accommodate it. And so we were never stuck from a boat speed standpoint. Hans was really good at that because as a sailmaker, he knew what his sails wanted to look like when he left the dock. But I knew what his mast was supposed to look like when he left the dock. That's a little different. So, Hans, you should stand up here. Stand up here.
They're videotaping. You have to smile for the camera.
I'm getting old, so I have to sit down.
Sure. Max, go ahead.
And
This is kind of for both you guys, and it's like later on, I guess your mentality developed through this, but Lisa, you didn't have as much time as some other guys did, but you're still one of the top guys in the world. Would you say that was mainly because of your mentality to always want to win? Like, do you think that is the forefront or the most crucial aspect of, sports in general, personally?
Well, it's, yeah, I mean, I think it is one of the most important aspects of what drew me was that I always wanted to win. So that when I went somewhere, I never felt that I was behind everybody. I mean, I guess that's it. So and I'll go back to what I said before. People often talk to me about, well, these guys have been in Europe for the last 2 months. They've been working. Now we're going to an event. Where do you think you're going to be in that? Be right at the top with them. Never felt like I'd fallen behind at all.
if I'm slow, go out there. Just an example, because that's easy to be slow.
I
Anyway,
do both.
so I always change something. I learned that from Elstrom. He said, never go out with the same shit. He said, you gotta be better. So we change something, change the tuning, maybe change the sail, maybe change mast. At least if something is changed, you find it's either better or worse. If it's better, great, we're going the right direction. If it works, to hell with that. You gotta go and do something. Eventually you get it. But you go out with the same slow boat, you're not gonna get further. You never give up. You have to work up the ladder and be up to the top. And I see a lot of young sailors and say, what should I do? And so on. Just do something. What do you mean? Pull more outhaul. Okay, so I pulled more outhaul. It didn't work. And then ease it in. Oh, it worked. Okay. So that's the way to learn. And anybody which are in any sport, they have to make some mistake before they find out. We never go there again. And eventually you get to the point where you're getting better and better, and it's just trial and trial and
Error.
and yeah, that's the way you learn it. And even in sailmaking, we made a lot of bad sails. We don't make this again. We know we want to do it because we had this idea. We don't do it anymore. Then we go further and do that. So that's something. If you're a winner, you never give up. just go forward until you are on the top. And that's what I learned, a lot from this guy Elson, because he would go out, and if he had lost a weekend or lost a race or something like that, you see him next week sailing more than anybody else, or with his tune, and especially when he was a Finn sailor, he worked on his being stronger and better, hiking longer, with 2 or 3 man boat. Equipment is important, working with your crew. I know that when I had to win this medal and we won the regatta, I changed the crew. Well, geez, right before. I got too tall, but you know, in the boat. We went from being there to medal contender. I knew I couldn't win with those guys I had, with that guy. There was only one I changed. I got too tall in the boat. We won the European, we won everything, we were medal contender.
What do you mean too tall?
Steve Calder.
Steve Calder, but he's
Steve
6'8".
Calder, the big tall guy that used to work for me.
He's 6'8", so they call him.
Or with us, I would say.
Too tall.
Yeah, he's one of the, first of all, he's really competitive guy. 2 poles and the kite's up. And he wants to win more than I want to win. And he has a great eye for technical aspect of the boat too. He's been in America's Cup the last 3 or 4 times, so he's that kind of guy. And so I did that, and we got that. Otherwise, I wouldn't have get it. I know that for sure. So sometimes you need to be honest to yourself and do the right thing, what you have to do. Now, I've done it before the first regatta or something like that. Don't do this. Do it in plenty of time. I changed equipment, and I made wrong. I changed equipment, I made right, and I won the world. That kind of stuff has to happen. Otherwise, you won't get there, in my opinion.
You can't afraid to be wrong. A regatta that you go to, that you've taken a new sail or new piece of equipment, and you get last every race, it's not a lost regatta. You go and try something and it doesn't work. You try something for a week, it doesn't work. It's not a lost week. It's just knowledge that you put so that when you are somewhere where it's really important, you just don't repeat it. It's like in a strategy in a race to go out a little bit to the left or a little bit of the right to somebody. You need leverage sometime if you want to be out in front and win. When you have that leverage and when something happens, you got to use it correctly. And more often than not, you'll use it wrong, and everybody will say, well, see what happens when you go off by yourself? Which is, some people say that, but that's not the right attitude. The point is, you learn, when you have the leverage and something happens, you learn how to use it right. And you have big gains, or you're in front with a big lead. Those are the types of things that, from a strategy standpoint, that you win at. I see a lot of kids, and the girls that I coach, they always want to get back together with the group. They always were uncomfortable to be out a little bit and have leverage, because they've always been told that, oh, you can't be taking a flyer. You can't be going off into the corners. Well, being 10 boat lengths to the right of the group is not in a corner. You just have leverage, so if you get a shift one way or the other, you can react to it. If you're just with the group and a shift happens, you end up being with the group the whole time. That is the aspect about winning. You look to ways to win. You don't look to ways to just be average. Hans mentioned something about changing. And you mentioned, I was told about how we knew each other. We know each other so well that we're in Denmark at a world championship, and I'm with another Canadian boat. We're talking, we're side by side yakking, and we hear a, and then a, and both of us looked at each other and we said, Hans is banging on his spreader bar with a hammer on the trailer. Is that not true? He was on the other side of the club and we heard this bang, bang, and we knew exactly what it was. Did we know him? Yes. Do we know he was slow the day before? He was changing. And it was good. Went faster after that, but we knew each other so well. We knew exactly what it was, even though there was 80 other boats in the boat park.
Well, it is. I wasn't happy with the boat speed, and I had an idea I had to do X amount, like change the spider angle a little bit. So we do it. And somebody said, we'll go out and try once more. Maybe tomorrow we'll get it in. Before you know the regatta's over, it has to be done now, because if you don't have the boat speed, again, that to me means, I would say equal or better is important. Otherwise you are not having a problem. You're having a problem. And when we actually, another thing, and that actually I want to talk to the laser sail a little bit about that. Laser sail a single handle. I sail laser myself quite a bit. And you get a sail and it looks X because they're all the same, And sometimes you put it up, you go out in the regatta, and you haven't used it before, and you go out, I'm not very fast, what's going on? I got a new sail. I said, you never go out in a regatta without testing your sail first. We sometimes have done that, but we always got bad result out of it, or maybe in some case, but maybe it's not good enough. You want to be sure when you hit the starting line, you have the speed. So a laser sail, it can be a small thing different. A laser sail could be better after 3 hours sailing on the water first. So you got to write down how many hours each laser sail has to be sure when it peak and when it go downhill. And I know that not everybody says, I've got this new sail, I know I'm not fast and all this. Well, knowing the equipment, sails, whatever it is, it takes a little bit of change, a little bit of different cloth, a little bit of various things that can happen when you put it together. So always test it. And if you don't like it, you have another one in reserve and put it up. Now I'm fast. You always had to have another alternative. So that means you probably have 2 sails. One is brand new, one you used a little bit. And if you go to this regatta, it could be good on flat water, the other one could be good on rough water. And those things happen all the time. And I know that the laser sailors are saying, well, we don't have very much to do. Well, I want to talk a little bit about coaching, what you can do with coaching. Another little example, I bought some sails from Wynn's Group, which is a very, one of the best sailor U.S. has ever had. And he kind of talked a little bit about it. He said, hey, do we have a coach? I said, not really. Well, you got to have a coach. Why? Okay, yeah, I guess I got it. I wouldn't feel stupid and say no, but he said everybody today which are in competition, want to reach a goal, has to have a coach, taking pictures, follow the mast bend, follow the shape of the sail, and analyze everything, write it down what you've gone through. So he said, get a coach. And here I am, I never had a coach before, but he said, and Vince Boone, I have a lot of respect for him. He's absolutely right. And I got Thomas up one day and looked at the actual sail. He come back and saying, your sails are way too full. So was Alan's, and this and this and this and this. And say, thank you very much. We flattened it next time we won. That's what it takes. But technical coaching is very, very important today to get further ahead with boat speed. I had a lot of experimenting from being a little bit of a coach. One of the most fun guys to coach was Hank Lamons, a Canadian. He should have had the gold medal in Barcelona. He was so fast, very good attitude, positive. What happened? We do this to the sail. Can we go back and say, yeah, anytime. Okay, let's do it. Okay, let's go for it. Very positive. He's coached in the hockey. He was a professional hockey player by high potential coaches in the world. And it was so fun working with him because the positive he has. And if you had a bad race, don't worry about that. We go forward. We don't look back, we go forward. That's the way coaches has to be. And coaches for him was a dream because he was reacting the positive way. So just to sort of mention this because I know some of the coaches are in here. Never give up until you're on the top.
One of the things coaches would have done for us answer one of the questions. We took a long time to get ourselves up the learning curve. And coaches today have the ability to advance the sailors up the learning curve a lot faster with a lot less pain than we took to do what we did.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's one of the things. It's, I'm not saying that you don't use a coach aid just because we didn't have coaches. I mean, having a coach now means that instead of spending 10 years, you can spend 10 months and do the, so I mean, don't take it wrong that we say we don't need coaches. It's, we just never had it at the time. Coaching is like Hans says, it's great, especially if it can help you on your deficiencies or the things you cannot see, like looking at the sails from off of the boat. That is just paramount to be able to do that. And that's what I get to do now. I'm working with people. I get to go around and look at the back of the sails and see that. And it's amazing how differently people set the sails when they're sailing side by side, and they've been that way for a week, and yet they set their sails differently.
Can you guys just maybe talk a little bit about the different learning opportunities you have when you're training on your own versus training in a training group? And if you can talk about, like, a reoccurring thing, and something that's very important to have in a successful athlete is like the drive to always want to win. And how that drive is either good when you're in a training group or how it can be bad, because what I think, you know, coaches are trying to convey the message to the athletes is sometimes you don't want to be competitive so that you can focus on a very individual skill. And I think that's where the benefit of training on your own is huge, because you don't have other people out there to compete with and you have the time to think.
I'm going to answer first on this. One of the things between what Hans and us, we were in a 3-person boat. So we had a team. The team had to function. So we could go out and sail for hours by ourselves doing our teamwork. Jibing, reaching, running, tacking. We could do a lot of that and get our teamwork together. If you're by yourself in a boat and you go out by yourself, like in a laser, you don't have any social interaction. So it's really tough. You have to have some very, very special drive to be able to keep yourself working hard. When you have the crew in the boat like we did, that's different. You can go out by yourself, and I know you spent a lot of time by yourself with the guys out there, because they used to complain that you would go 2 hours on one tack and their legs would fall off. But
And the crew complains because they get
Yeah.
tired in their legs, you know.
yeah, and that's one of the things that I think we did spend quite a bit of time working and training with our crews. I mean, I was sort of lucky in Sarnia. I had my dad who had very similar interests, and we would go out sailing, just the two of us, for hours and hours. I mean, I had this competitive to win, and at the time, just beating my dad helped satisfy that. No matter what, I mean, you just got to be on top of him all the time. Got to be first. But while we were doing that, we were training the crews and things like that. So I never had that desire to be with the group, like you might say. I think Hans has sailed more with groups here.
What about you and the, well, take you and the Finn, right? You had a group in
Yeah,
Denmark.
yeah,
you was alone, right?
you know, I sailed a lot of Finns, and I'm a small guy, but we had no choice because most of in Denmark we met weekends all year round, and Elstrom had his Finn, Henning Wind had his Finn, I had a Finn, and my crew had a Finn, and a guy called Swart. We were 4 or 5 guys racing against each other every day, every weekend. And it was interesting because we made a little change. I didn't feel I was going, so we made a change. We had that, we could feel that we were lacking X amount of boat speed in this wind and that wind, so we made changes. And we learned how to do this. And I learned how to trim my fin mast to my weight. Now when I sail, I usually have big sweaters on, and I weighed about 200 and plus pounds, which I had to do, otherwise I would not be there, be competitive. So I learned how to plane the mast down due to that they were wooden spar and make it just right. So I had a lot of experience of set the sail to the mast. So I invented the radio laser on that aspect of knowing where the mast has to bend. And if you know the radial laser, we took the bottom section, made it softer, and you depower better, use the same top, and depower better for a smaller guy. And it worked, and it came from fin sailing in a group. I was a smaller guy, and I was able to keep up if I had the right bending characteristics. So it worked, and it was right because of the experience I had. So group sailing, first of all, it's more fun being out there with other guys and try to get a little faster. Next weekend we try this, we try that. Next weekend, and we always trying something. And when I'm out sailing against Billy and stuff like that, if I beat him, I bet you next time he beat me, he must have done something. I know that. But he won't let that go. So therefore, that's what you need when you sail against each other. You have this instinct. Winner never give up winning. They go at each other, and I think it helps tremendous at having a group together. And also analyze your performance afterward with a showdown from your coach. Get together, talk about it. If you want to be better, you have to do a debriefing and be better and better. Otherwise, you forget about it. Write it down, and because then you can take the book and go back and say, yeah, that's actually what I did. I forgot. Now I'll try that again. There's a lot of things, and I can stand here the whole afternoon and tell you what I did and stuff like that. I've done so many foolish things. I've done a lot of good things, and the good things has happening in getting the medals. And funny enough, the Pan Am medal, which I won, I can't remember when.
87.
But anyway, it doesn't matter. Pan Am coming up here. But Stoling was picked for the Pan Am game, and I took part. And there were 3 guys, which there was actually a very small fleet. And there was John Kostecki, and there was Torben Grell, and myself. And we had a match racing with 3 boats. And John Kostecki ended up winning. We came second, and Torben Grell come third. Now, they're all world-class sailors. I think I am anyway. So therefore, there was fantastic sailing against the best in the world on strictly boat speed, wind shift, what we learned. And you can measure yourself with Torben Grell, which won 5 Olympic medals. Kostecki, as he is, medal winner, one of the best sailor in the world. That's the way you gotta try to find the best in the world, sail against them. How do you do this? Another little hint to coaches. I go out and I take the picture of the best guys on the course before the race. They go out and tune up. They don't like it. Sometimes the coach will come over and push me away. I got the pictures from the 540. I got the picture of Hank Lammers, the guys, the competition. We analyze those pictures, compare with what they have. Are we happy? Are we not happy? And in some cases, we can make changes. But you've got to get the best guys and actually copy them. Just copy them. Morton, he went to Optimist World many years ago, and he was sent to a training part in Denmark. There were 25 Optimist sailors in Denmark, and they are very good. And we asked him to come there and train with them. He trained with them for a week. He was dead last. There were 5 guys, 25 boats. 5 guys go to the world. Morton goes to the world in France. He learned so much that week. He ended up being 23rd out of 200 boats, and beat 2 or 3 of the Danish guys. But he copied everyone he could. I told him, copy what you can see. He was so tired after the race he fell over before the dinner. So that's what you need. And I know Morton wants to do it. And anyway, the example are go and do it hard. You will come there. And that's what Billy has done to me, and I'm still trying to do it to Billy. It's tougher and tougher, okay?
You asked the question, just that on something to train.
Well, yeah, it's
We, you know what, in all our times, never did. If you were faster than a group, you come back, you go with them, you walk away from them again, and come back, be with them, underneath them, this way, whatever, but you never slowed yourself so that you could do something. Always put it to them, all the time, every time. Never let them think that they're getting close to you, just, so, and if they got up to you, that's fine, but you never went slow to do something. You always just kept, but you'd come back, you wouldn't sail away, you'd come back, but always. And there's another thing about, from a winning standpoint, sailing out to the race course. You know when this race starts? The moment we push away from the dock. You've got 2 hours of racing before you actually hear the first gun, if you want to look at it that way. You beat everybody anytime you're up against them all the time.
I think the biggest thing I take away from you guys is the fact that the reason why you're winners is because you have that drive, that competitive nature. And I think in today's society, it sort of feels like that competitiveness is sort of, we're constantly being told to tone it down. You know, like, we don't want to make things too competitive because we don't want little Timmy to get his feelings hurt when he gets beat. I mean, what do you guys think? Because obviously that competitiveness is what fueled you to become the best. You know, like, how can we, bring that back in and try and foster it some more to make things more competitive?
As a coach, the top of the podium, right? I mean, how many places is that? One. Okay? So out of all of the Timmies that you're coaching, there's only going to be a place for one. There's going to be a lot of other Timmies down here.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, you can never let them ever feel that they're going to be one of the ones down here. Somehow you always got to convey to them that they're going to be the Timmy that is at the top, which that's what your job is going to be. But you know, as a coach, that there is only going to be one Timmy at the top. It's a secret you can't tell them, that's
Yeah.
all.
How do we try to create more? Is there obviously, like, there's no secret formula, but how?
Always get them to be happy.
Yeah.
Always be happy with what they've done, but never be satisfied. Okay? Pat them on the back and at the same time kick the feet out from underneath them somehow. Okay? You gotta make sure that they feel that they're gaining, that they're doing something, but they're never good enough yet.
I bet you my athletes over there.
Oh, you better take that off.
I know coaching some of the JSN guys, you have to be honest with them too. All I said, all of you guys can win, but you got to put it together, right? And some of you guys can have put it together, other guys are basket cases for after the regatta. And at the youth champs, there's a couple guys, they got in this mind frame, and I said, smarten up, get back in your game, and you can still finish the top 5, because 5 at the end of the day is going to be better than 7 or 8. And they smartened up, and they tried to get there. Some of them did, some of them didn't. But I think at the level you guys are coaching at specifically, you guys can push your athletes harder than you think.
One thing,
If they want to get to that level, you can push them.
this is not a subjective sport. We get no points for style, we get no points for how your boat looks, you get no points for, what your team looks like, okay? It's very objective, all right? And that's one of the things that, as a coach, you can rely on, that you don't have to go and tell a kid how he did, because he can see it. It's there on the score sheet. And ultimately, that's what gets remembered, okay? I mean, it's the score sheet. So, from that aspect about telling kids how well they're doing, whatever, they can see it, and they know it, okay? Your job as a coach is, which is tough, is you've got to look after the group and encourage them to climb up the ladder from where they are, and still make sure that you got one of those guys hitting to the top.
Just to be sure that they're happy, I think that if you push them too hard, they can have backfire. And I think eventually, if they want to do what we all want to do, winning, then eventually it comes. So if you push, especially a young guy, too hard, then it can backfire. But I don't think you should be firm and saying, what is our goal? Set the goal. And the guy may not reach the goal, but he's getting there. And I set myself a lot of goals where I want to be and how I do that. And I think, we work best by having a goal. If we are kind of not having a goal, or as long as I'm in the top half, I'm okay. Well, let's try to be a little bit better and do this. And I think some has to not being pushed too hard. And I can see that with younger people. Some already won the regatta before they start. You've got to slow them down a little bit and say, go and do it first, then we can talk. So there's a lot of small things we have to do. I wrote down that to coach a guy, if I had to coach Billy or somebody, I need 2 years. I need to find out what he's good at, what he's bad at. I need to have a relationship between you and I, which are good, so when we talk about it, he doesn't feel bad. And that's important. Right now, I think there's other sport, and I read the coach's mind about how Maple Leafs fire this guy and this guy, and then they everybody say the coach is too tough. So there is some backfire you've got to worry about. That comes by after learning the person, and I say a good coaching job takes 2 years to learn the guy to reach the top.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time. We're over time.
Yeah. Guys, let Wendy have a go here.
But so I'm sure that you have to answer some questions after. I just want to leave you with one quote from, I think it kind of sums up everything that they've said and sort of how to win. It's from a Olympic gold medalist in a laser. It says, to do the Olympics, you have to have an amazing amount of drive. You have to be up in the morning at 6 a.m. You have to be cycling in the gym. You have to be out sailing when it's freezing cold, 0 degrees, and doing that extra step compared to anyone else to win that gold. It has to become an obsession of yours. And I think that's the message they gave us today. That was Tom Slingsby from Australia, won gold in London, and was sailing on our boat.
When was he sailing for his goal? He's Australia.